Hey you guys, welcome back to another video. Hope you all had a great week, a great Christmas, and great New Year. So this last week in the reading plan, we read through Colossians and 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. And so this week, I just want to talk about Colossians and a little bit of an overview of the book. And so this book was written by Paul to the church in Colossae. It wasn't actually a church that he planted himself, but the man who planted it came to Paul and asked him to write this kind of on his behalf. So Paul is writing this, and half of the book is him encouraging the church and thanking them for things that they do well. And the other half is him kind of giving instruction on things that he's been told about the church. But the overall theme of the book is all about Jesus and how Jesus is the master of all things and is over all things. So at the beginning of the book, Paul is writing and thanking them and encouraging the church. And then he writes almost like this poem about Jesus and describing who he is and how he's over all things. And so in verses 21 and 22 of chapter 1, he says, "Once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. But now he has reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death to present you holy in his sight, without blemish and free from accusation." And so he talks about how Jesus has provided opportunity for us to be with God. A little bit later on in chapter 2, he talks about some of the things that the people were maybe fearful of or still acting in that he wants to address. And so half of it is cultural, that they grew up in a polytheistic world and viewing tons of gods, and this does this certain thing and this God is over this certain thing, but how Jesus, in conquering death, has proven himself to be over all things and the King of all kings. He also describes how some of them are still wanting to live in the old law, things that when Jesus came and went through the crucifixion and resurrection, that he fulfilled, that they don't have to participate in anymore. And so he says, "See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the elemental spiritual forces of this world rather than on Christ." And so he says, look, all of these things are actually in submission to Jesus. Your culture, some of your traditions, none of them actually matter because Jesus is King and Jesus is Lord. After that, Paul writes and says this in chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. "Do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with its practices and have put on the new self, which is being renewed in knowledge in the image of its creator." And so Paul is describing how, okay, so now that this is a new way to live. Jesus has made us not only a creation, but now a new creation through his, again, crucifixion and resurrection, that we don't have to live in our old self or our old life anymore, but Jesus has made an avenue for us to live differently, that other people can see and live differently. So really through all of these things, I think there's a lot for us to take away and a lot for us to change the way that we live. So 3 things that I want to challenge us to do differently this week is this: that we would look at Jesus as the one who holds all things together. We would see him differently in all of his glory and all of his power. That we would live like Jesus is greater than our culture. We don't have to be under the things of our culture, the things of our tradition, but Jesus is over all of those. And that we would love others in a way that shows who Jesus is. That as we live as the new creation that he has made accessible to us, that people around us would notice. Thank you, guys.